There's something uniquely haunting about lost media, the idea that footage, recordings, or entire films can disappear, leaving behind only fragments of what was left behind. But when that media comes from the minds of serial killers, it becomes something else entirely. These aren't urban legends or horror stories. These are real pieces of media created or connected to people who took lives. The first example of this is David Parker Ray, better known as the Toy Box Killer. He was an American R-worder, torturer, and suspected serial killer in New Mexico who is believed to have murdered up to 60 victims despite never being convicted of murder. His crimes spanned from 1957 to 1999. David abducted women, often escorts, and confined them in a soundproof semi-trailer outside his Elephant Butte home, a space he called the Toy Box. Inside, he forced intimacy and tortured victims, sometimes involving family members and dogs. He is suspected of killing victims and disposing of bodies so effectively that no remains have ever been found. His crime spree ended in March 1999 after victim Cynthia escaped, was hospitalized, and reported him to the police. One of the most notable pieces of media linked to the case is an audio tape David played to the captives in the trailer. Dated July 23, 1993, it functioned as a general advisory tape for future female captives, where he laid out rules, threats, and how he intended to treat them, referencing a lady friend and hinting that he had killed before. The recording's reputation comes from how disturbing and methodical it is. Its purpose was to terrorize and control, and it made clear the victim could be kept for days and discarded in remote places. For years, the tape itself was considered unreleased, though a transcript circulated widely. That changed on October 6, 2022, when Lost Media Wiki user Tom Servo filed a New Mexico Inspection of Public Records Act request with the New Mexico Department of Public Safety for a digitized copy. 15 days later, he received a 5-minute MP3 and released it online, turning a long-rumored artifact of the case into partially found media. David was convicted for the abduction and sexual torture of Kelly Garrett, receiving a 224-year sentence in 2001 after a plea bargain in the latter's trial. Several accomplices, including Cynthia Hendy and his daughter Glenda, were also sentenced. David died in May 2002 before he was set to be questioned further by New Mexico State Police. Stephen Griffith, known as the Crossbow Cannibal, murdered 3 women between June 22, 2009 and May 21, 2010. He lured escorts to his apartment in Bradford, West Yorkshire, where he killed them with a crossbow, butchered their bodies, and ate parts of them before dumping the remains in the River Aire. The killing shocked Britain for their brutality, but the murder of his final victim, Suzanne Blamires, became infamous after it was captured on CCTV. What a few know is that Stephen also filmed himself dismembering his victims and taking photographs of their corpses as trophies. At 17, Stephen stabbed a supermarket manager and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. In 1992, he was jailed again for holding a knife at a girl's throat. The previous year, he had been diagnosed as a schizoid psychopath. Despite this, by 2009, he seemed to have rebuilt his life. He was studying for a PhD in homicide studies at the University of Bradford, focusing on serial killers from the 19th century to the modern day. However, his obsession with murder and dismemberment never faded. Police had long suspected he was a potential serial killer. 2 years before the murders, they confiscated his hunting weapons and discovered he had been reading extensively about dismemberment. They warned his housing association to upgrade CCTV around the building, but he could not be sectioned under the Mental Health Act due to a lack of evidence of psychosis. The first known victim was 43-year-old Susan Rushworth, who disappeared on June 22, 2009. A mother of 3, Susan had turned to an escort following a brain hemorrhage that caused epilepsy and led to addiction. In the weeks before her death, she had begun trying to recover, moving back in with her mother and reducing her drug use. On the day she vanished, she told her mother she was going to buy medicine and was last seen getting off a bus. At some point, she entered Stephen's flat, where he killed her with a crossbow bolt, dismembered her body in the bathtub, and ate parts of her remains. Blood traces later linked Stephen to her murder, but her body was never found. His next victim was 31-year-old Shelley Armitage, who disappeared on April 26, 2010. Like Susan, she supported herself through working on the streets. Stephen murdered her in the same way, using a crossbow, before recording himself dismembering her body. In the video, he referenced to himself as the bloodbath artist, calling Shelley a model who is assisting me. He spray painted her back with the words "my sex slave" and described what he was doing as he cut her apart with knives and power tools. After the murder, Stephen lost his phone on a train. The device changed hands several times before being turned over to the police. It contained videos and photographs of his crimes, including footage of Shelley's dismemberment and evidence suggesting he had filmed his other murders as well. A senior detective described the contents as the most disturbing material he had ever seen. Unlike Susan, some of Shelley's remains were recovered from the River Aire, confirming Stephen's involvement. On May 21, 2010, 36-year-old Suzanne Blamires became Stephen's final victim. Stephen lured her to his flat by pretending to be a photographer seeking models. Once inside, Suzanne attempted to escape, running down the hallway as Stephen chased her with a crossbow. The entire sequence was captured on CCTV. Stephen shot her in the head at point-blank range, dragged her lifeless body back into his flat, and later noticed the camera had recorded the murder. Realizing he had been caught, he walked back into the corridor and gave the middle finger to the camera. He then dismembered and partially ate her body before dumping the remains in the River Aire, some of which were later recovered. 3 days later, the caretaker of Stephen's building, Peter Gee, reviewed the CCTV and discovered the recording of the murder. He immediately alerted police, who arrested Stephen soon after. When questioned, Stephen confessed and called himself the Crossbow Cannibal. He was charged with 3 counts of murder and pleaded guilty in December 2010. He received a whole life sentence, meaning that he will never be released. The CCTV of Suzanne's murder was partially released to the media. Clips shown by NBC News displayed Stephen flipping off the camera and talking to Edmondson, but none of the footage showing the actual killing or the dragging of the body was broadcast. The full recording remains unreleased out of respect for the victims and due to its graphic content. Likewise, the photographs and mobile phone videos of the dismemberments have never been made public. The device containing the footage remains in the custody of the British courts. Given the extreme nature of the material, this piece of lost media will stay lost forever. In February 2012, Joanna Dennehy was temporarily sectioned at Peterborough City Hospital, where doctors diagnosed her with antisocial personality disorder and obsessive-compulsive disorder. After her arrest, she was also found to have paraphilia, sadomasochism, meaning she derived sexual pleasure from pain and humiliation. By 2013, she was living in a flat in Rolleston Garth, owned by Kevin Lee, a landlord who rented properties to vulnerable tenants. Joanna was hired as an enforcer to pressure tenants into paying rent. She was paid, lived rent-free, and began an affair with Lee. She also befriended Gary Richards, a convicted burglar, and Leslie Layton, a petty thief. All 3 lived together under tense circumstances, though Joanne's charm and volatility gave her control over the group. Around the same time, Joanna met Lucas, a Polish immigrant who struggled with homelessness and drug use. On March 19, 2013, she invited him to her flat and promised intimacy. Once there, she blindfolded and stabbed him to death. Gary helped dispose of the body out of fear and loyalty. Joanna placed Lucas's corpse in a green wheelie bin and later dumped it on Thorny Dyke with Gary and Leslie's help. On March 28th, Joanna murdered her neighbor John Chapman. She got him drunk until he passed out, then stabbed him 6 times in the chest. While he lay unconscious, Gary and Leslie helped her move the body to Thorny Dyke near Lucas's remains. The next day, Joanna turned on Kevin Lee. Though he had grown wary of her, he agreed to meet after she claimed she wanted to dress up and engage in intimacy. When he arrived, she had him put on a black dress before stabbing him multiple times in the heart and lungs. His body was later found in a ditch near Newborough, positioned in a degrading sexual pose. Police launched Operation Darcy after Lee's body was found. Investigators quickly focused on Joanna after learning of her affair with Lee. They searched his properties and discovered a photo of John Chapman's body on Leslie's phone. Leslie confessed that Joanna had killed him and feared he would be next. On April 2nd, Joanna stabbed 2 men at random, dog walkers Robin and John. Luckily, the both of them survived. Less than 20 minutes later, police stopped her car in Newton Close and arrested Joanna and Gary. She showed no remorse, laughing and joking with officers. During questioning, she revealed that she planned to kill 9 men to match the body count of Bonnie and Clyde. Joanna pleaded guilty to 3 murders and 2 attempted murders. On February 28, 2014, she was sentenced to life imprisonment with no chance of release. While in prison, Joanna's behavior continued to draw attention. One of the most notable incidents involved the discovery of an escape plot written in her diary. In September 2013, 2 inmates alerted officers that she was planning a breakout. When staff examined her diary, they found a detailed plan that included killing a female guard, stealing her keys, and severing her finger to trick the prison's biometric system. The prison went into lockdown and Joanna was placed in solitary confinement for 2 years. In 2016, Joanna sued the British government, claiming her segregation violated her human rights. The court ruled that part of her isolation had been unauthorized, but upheld the decision to continue her confinement due to the escape threat. The diary containing the escape plan was confiscated and never returned. It is unclear whether it still exists or was destroyed after the lawsuit, but it is unlikely to ever be released to the public due to security concerns, making it lost media forever. Mark Andrew Twitchell, also known as the Dexter Killer, is a Canadian filmmaker convicted in 2011 of first-degree murder. His case gained attention for being inspired by the fictional serial killer Dexter Morgan. But what is lesser known is the amount of media he created before his crimes, much of which remains unreleased or partially lost. Before the murder that made him infamous, Mark attempted to lure and kill a man named Jills using a fake dating profile under the name Sheena. When Jills arrived, Mark attacked him wearing a hockey mask and armed with a stun baton. After a fight, Jills managed to escape but never reported the incident. In October 2008, he repeated the same setup with another man, Johnny, who had also been speaking to Sheena online. Johnny went to the address where Mark attacked and killed him. He dismembered the body and dumped the remains in a storm drain. Police later found a file on Mark's laptop titled SK Confession and another called A Profile of a Psychopath. Blood evidence in his vehicle matched Johnny's. Mark was arrested and sentenced to life in prison with no parole eligibility for 25 years. Before these events, Mark had been producing films that became points of interest for their disturbing connection to his crime. In 2006, he created a fan film called Star Wars: Secrets of the Rebellion, which included a cameo from Boba Fett actor Jeremy Bulloch. The movie was never released beyond post-production. Around the same time, Mark wrote a screenplay titled Day Players. A short promo trailer was released in December 2007, describing it as a film about 2 actors trying to make it in the industry. There is no evidence it was ever filmed, and the script has never been made public. His most notorious project was House of Cards, a short horror film depicting men being lured into a garage for a date and murdered. It was filmed in the same garage Mark later used to kill Johnny. The film's plot directly mirrored the crime that followed. Only brief clips have been showed publicly through Dateline NBC coverage. Mark's case stands out because his filmmaking and his crimes became inseparable. The media he produced, much of it now lost, shows how his fascination with fictional violence blurred into reality. Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka were a Canadian serial killer couple who between 1990 and 1992 committed the forced intimacy and murder of 3 young girls in Ontario: Leslie, Kristen, and Karla's own sister, Tammy. Paul had already been active years before their partnership, carrying out a series of essays across the Scarborough area beginning in 1986. When the couple was arrested and brought to trial in 1993, Karla accepted a controversial plea bargain in exchange for testifying against Paul. She claimed she had been a victim herself, saying that Paul had physically and mentally abused her and forced her to participate in these crimes. The controversy grew when 6 videotapes were discovered showing the pair committing their assaults and murders. These recordings revealed that Karla was not merely a passive participant, but an active accomplice who took part willingly. The tapes, which together ran for roughly 3.5 hours, documented the forced intimacy and torture of the victims and another survivor referred to as Jane Doe. During the first search of Paul's home, investigators only found 1 tape. The rest were discovered 16 months later, hidden in a ceiling light fixture. Paul's lawyer eventually turned them over to the prosecution. The public outrage that followed was immense. Many Canadians were furious that Karla had received a lenient sentence, 12 years for manslaughter, despite clear proof of her active role in the crimes. The infamous videotapes were destroyed in 2001 after authorities determined they were no longer needed as evidence. Only written transcripts remained, though they are not publicly accessible. Today, the Paul and Karla tapes are regarded as some of the most disturbing and sought-after pieces of lost media in true crime history. Edmund Kemper, also known as the Co-ed Killer, murdered 10 people between 1964 and 1973, including 6 young women, his mother, her friend, and his own grandparents. After turning himself into police in 1973, Kemper was sentenced to life imprisonment and has remained behind bars ever since. In 1977, he joined the Volunteers of Vacaville, a prison program aimed at producing audiobooks for blind readers, known among inmates as the Blind Project. The initiative gave prisoners the opportunity to transcribe and narrate books ranging from novels to legal codes. Kemper quickly became one of its most prolific contributors. Over the course of at least 25 years, Kemper recorded an estimated 5,000 hours of audio, producing hundreds of full-length audiobooks. He was promoted to project coordinator by 1985 and was featured in a 1983 KCRA weeknight segment where he was filmed narrating parts of the Star Wars novelization and the Code of Georgia unannotated.
What have been your favorite readings?
Sometimes children's books, more complex children's books like White's Charlotte's Web, Stuart Little, Trumpet of the Swan, which were amazingly complex and before their times.
The day we visited, mass murderer Ed Kemper was transcribing Star Wars.
Reaching for the internal controls, 3PO was shocked. "Behave yourself, R2." He finally chastised his companion. "You're going to get us into trouble."
In 1987, blind couple Tony and Ed visited him in prison to thank him for his work. A photograph of the meeting was published in the Los Angeles Times. By 2002, Kemper's last known recording was Merlin's Mirror. After suffering a stroke in 2015, he retired from all prison work. While it's believed he recorded hundreds of titles, there is no complete public list. As of 2015, only 17 of Kemper's audiobooks were listed on the Volunteers of Vacaville website. Some clips have surfaced online, including a 45-second snippet of Flowers in the Attic on SoundCloud and excerpts from the 1983 KCRA footage. While no full audiobooks have been recovered, the existence of these clips confirms that a significant body of work exists, but they are just currently lost media. Thank you guys so much for liking this video. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing and liking the video if you guys want. And I do have a big project coming soon. And if you like this video, YouTube thinks that you'll love this one right here.